All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian McNulty. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm an LPC. I'm based in Mandeville, Louisiana. I've been working for the last 22 years in the field of both mental health and addiction, mostly addiction. Um, every now and then, what happens is I talk to people or interact with people, and I find keep hearing the same type of discussion, and that is regarding addiction or even more substance use, substance abuse. Terrible name. And it's really all about um, looking at addiction and from their perspective as a substance problem. Like the substance is the problem, and that's why we need to do something about that substance. Hence the war on drugs and go for abstinence, which is great. Although that's not really working very well. Abstinence doesn't seem to be the solution to a substance problem, although long-term recovery, the need to remain abstinent is kind of a byproduct of that. It's not the goal, it's a byproduct. So when I hear people talking about different ways that like I'll get a call. My sister uses too much alcohol. They still sell that. Can you still get Antabuse, which is a medication, old medieval medication that used to make the person violently ill if they drank, and that was supposed to keep them from drinking. All it did was make them violently ill and sometimes put them medically at risk. Or they found bizarre ways to drink on it or overcome it, but it did, and all it would do was keep them from drinking, not trying anything else. So after working many years in the field and being introduced to a more workable model regarding the biology of addiction, I worked at a treatment center called Townsend. The medical director and then eventual owner was a addictionologist, Howard Wetzman, and he was able to really explain the mechanisms of where addiction takes place, why it takes place, what recovery would need to be, and they were able to treat people with medications as we were treating them in an intensive outpatient program clinically. And I felt like we had some of the best results we could have asked for. And the important factors here was that we weren't looking at it strictly as a substance problem. The substance was secondary to a more primary chronic condition of the midbrain, the reward center. And so one of the interesting things was we would ask people upon intake about behaviors they engaged in before they ever drank or used a substance. And we found that there were many behaviors in their childhood and adolescence that they engaged in to spike dopamine, sports, gaming, you name it. But there were a lot of different behaviors that they engaged in, and then they found a substance that spiked it. Typically, in the addiction field, you end up you do a history to look for trauma, family of origin issues, and then you do a drug history, a drug use history, and it's all about when did you start. Oh, we started at 14, and by 18 you had a problem. And the assumption is they had a normal brain, 4 years of using it changed their brain, now they have addiction. And so that premise has been going on forever, it seems like. And it's very difficult to change. Even the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, from the third one to the current one, all have a premise that it's substance caused. substance caused. And so treatment has been aimed in that direction. And despite research, um, you know, from the beginnings of the Human Genome Project to all the subsequent studies of the brain to really pinpoint where there are variations, where there are difficulties in either dopamine production, dopamine receptor density, how many receptors are available, how long it stays out into those molecules stay out in the synapse before they get there's a reuptake valve that sucks up and recycles it. And so just knowing that it's related to a lot of those mechanisms helps explain why some people can go to AA and do well, improve dopamine levels because of the connection they feel. Because when people feel connected to others, feel known, understood, cared about, a part of something, more receptors emerge, and the more receptors you have, when you have more an increase in the amount of receptors or dopamine receptor density, it increases dopamine levels. And by doing that, if you don't have a severe problem, you can go to meetings and that ability to connect with others, to connect with on a spiritual basis as well. All those things can help increase those receptor levels and hence the dopamine levels. So that explains why that can work. And it also kind of explains why it doesn't work for some people. I believe, as with any chronic medical condition, what addiction is, that you're going to have mild versions, moderate, and severe versions of it. So when someone has moderate to severe dysfunction in the midbrain, those levels are going to be lower. They may not respond well to AA, or it may take an extended amount of time and enormous amounts of effort, or they can barely engage and then they disengage. So this can help explain why there's not as much success as we'd like, because AA has been successful, but to a certain degree. Now, we don't blame AA. We typically blame the patient. They didn't want it, when in fact, due to their low dopamine levels, they may not have been able to hear that message, feel the connection, and get the benefit of it. If we can help treat those deficient areas of the midbrain and increase those levels, then those people that weren't able to hear the message before now have a chance to hear that message. And so even having this discussion with others that are very very much believers in what they do, because they do really good work in treating addiction, but not necessarily as a brain disorder. And so the ability to reconceptualize addiction is not just a substance problem or the way that we've always done it, but to go, hey, we have something that works really well for this population, this subset of the population, but maybe not all of it. And I think one of the reasons that might be is that many of us in the field are in recovery, and the fact that we are in recovery, we may actually be of the mild variety. And if I had a terrible addiction, massive amounts of substances used and dysfunction within that may feel like it's a severe version of it, looking at it as a substance problem. Once again, it's not a substance problem. Looking at it strictly from a medical perspective, that it is the severity levels is to the severity of the dysfunction in the midbrain, then quite easily most of the people that have been able to be successful in recovery may have been of the mild variety, and we're trying to treat these people with moderate and severe, going, I was able to do it, why can't you? And it might not be fair. And I use might, and that's really too soft a word. It's not fair. It's not fair to them. So this kind of stuff that comes in my head. So it's another one of my ramblings. I apologize for the length, but I have a little coffee, and that's kind of what happens. So anyway, thank you for listening, and if you get anything from it, please let me know. Leave a message or a remark or whatever. Thank you very much.